Great. Well, hello, everyone. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to all of you today. Looks like there's about 10 or 11 attendees, which is fantastic. And I know I just want to say hi to a couple. I see Donald's joined and Harvey as well. So nice to see you guys again. I only have around like 40 minutes, so I'm going to try and keep things moving along, but I'm totally open to back and forth or answering questions. If I drop off for a sec, it's my kids have brought home a cough, of course, two young children. So it's just me hacking up a lung in the background. A little about me. I'm a director at 5 by 5. 5 by 5 is a company of 26. We build software distillery management software. We've been around since 2011. I've been here for a little over 2.5 years. Starting in 2011, I built a software product for tugboats, actually. That product and the whole company was bought by 5 by 5's current owners, Valaris, in 2018. And since then, I moved to 3 different businesses in the Valaris portfolio. And really, I'm positioned to help each business grow and work through some challenges that come with growth, because growth is hard, as you all know. My last stop was as a commercial director of a shipping company that worked with companies like Maersk. Believe it or not, I'm not an expert in being an engineer on board a tugboat. I'm not an expert in global commercial shipping or in distilling, but I consider myself experienced at solving business problems through software and in helping businesses grow. And I'm very passionate about the people working in this industry. I'm also here because if you go to a craft distillery in the US, there's a 60 or 70% chance they're using our software. So more than 1,000 US craft distilleries in total, and that may include some of you. We're locals, we're built in Colorado and deeply ingrained in the industry. Our start was actually as the in-house solution at Stranahan's, and since then we've done one thing and one thing only: software for the spirits industry. So we're at all the trade shows, like we were talking about at ADI coming up later this year. Very excited. We're at all the events. We help on bottling lines. We speak at educational institutes like the Beam Institute or on webinars like this. We'll be at a couple different shows this year. And Maria and I look forward to seeing a lot of you there and trying some of your products more specifically. So bring them on by. Our product wasn't reverse engineered from a different industry. It's not built outside of the US and expanded into our area. We're a homegrown solution in more than one way. We don't do beer, although we partner and integrate with beer solutions, and we do not do wine. Our whole team's in the US, except for one lone Irish finance team member. Poor thing. We don't have an office anymore, but after 2020, we got rid of it during COVID. But we still meet 4 or 5 times a year in Denver. Like I said, we got 26 people now. That's a dev team of 7, a support team of 6, a very small leadership team of 3, and then other supporting roles. I've been fortunate enough to work alongside some big businesses as a solutions architect or a software strategist or a relationship builder, all kinds of ridiculous titles that my family doesn't understand. They basically boil down to solving problems with software. I was pretty much embedded at Maersk's Copenhagen head office for 3.5 years, solving problems. And the shipping industry, it was an early software adopter, if you can believe it or not. And I believe while they may be ahead in the software adoption lifecycle, they're a good blueprint for what this industry is going through in the coming years. And although Maersk is a huge, enormous entity, there's a lot of lessons I learned from being embedded in that business that apply to us. I'm going to run through kind of a simple breakdown of what the industry went through there. Listen and then see if anything resonates with you. I'd be curious. So first, shipping's deeply complex. There's multiple geographies, there's cross-border trade, ports, customs, dynamic routing, vessel operations, fuel optimizations. It goes on and on and on. The pain points became unbearable for them. Too many manual workflows, lots of delays, wasted assets, compliance risk, empty or incorrect container moves, cargo loss, fuel inefficiencies. Let me ask you, these kind of problems, do they all sound familiar? So over time, the industry gradually realizes we can't fix this by throwing more people or paper at it. Only digitization, software, data can move the needle. Essentially, they felt like they were pushing a ball up a hill, and you reach a tipping point. So I've put a diagram of the Sisyphus effect here, which it was. So what did they do? Well, they began to embed software and digital transformation in their multi-year plans. And really importantly, their budgets, because it does cost money. They start carving out software innovation budgets, sometimes even setting up whole teams to support this. They treat software projects not just as expenses, but value multipliers. So are they getting more efficient? Do they have new revenue opportunities? They run pilots. They scale really selectively. They build iteratively, and they know the business metrics they'll use to measure success. For each problem, once you've adopted a solution, the ball kind of starts rolling itself. This is an interesting diagram. Each box is a critical business operation. This is one from Maersk, and each color is a piece of software. It's a big, scary looking thing, but basically by the time a lot of these companies got serious, there was already software providers in place. They tend to be cautious though. They pick proven vendors, that they require strong APIs so they can integrate with other tools. They need domain expertise because they're not working with someone who has no idea about their industry. They require really good long track records. They partner with technology firms rather than kind of build in-house. They choose people who are not only dedicated to getting money from them, but dedicated to their success. And over time, industry groups and partnership networks emerge. And those become more important than any one vendor, meaning these software companies that start working together these software companies start working together for the whole industry. They each stay in their lane, but each supporting businesses like yours, and working kind of together. So it's really important that you're not independently solving problems. You're working together to solve problems. One important takeaway from this slide: every single one of these boxes exist for you, whether you use software or not. So it's kind of like, don't hide from it. This is the state of things. Couple more slides about shipping, we'll get back to spirits. But what ends up happening is the systems begin to feed and talk to each other. The more data flows, the more solutions become possible. The adoptions of these tools and the gains they provide create brand new services, revenue models, and tools for all these businesses. Measurable improvements are huge. I mean, if you think about this technological blow up that shipping went through, shorter production times, lower fuel use, fewer errors, reduced waste. These are all things that happened over a 10 to 15 year period. They were able to, most importantly, these businesses were able to respond faster to any disruptions. And differentiation, strategic differentiation, is huge. Some shipping firms become thought leaders. And over time, companies that lag or are late, they fall behind. I'll give you an example, an interesting story from Maersk. I remember sitting in a Copenhagen boardroom and asking the question, if we could solve one problem this year, what would it be? And their VP of purchasing said, if you could have my team size and cut our payroll costs by $20 million, I'll give you my entire $2 million budget. There's a reason why I'm not in shipping anymore. That's a bit soulless, but we focused on the problem and specifically using data. We did a really fun project with them. And it didn't lead to having their team size, but it led to a lot of efficiencies. And the takeaway being, Maersk saw software and technology as a means to solve their most critical problems. So back to spirits. When I look at distilling or shipping or tugboats, funnily enough, what I see is a supply chain. Each of those images or processes or boxes that are here on the screen, those are opportunities for me to leverage software or technology to solve your problems. So brings me to the rest of my presentation. Let's refocus. I built this presentation with one thing in mind. It's not a sales pitch. It's not meant to be a sales pitch for Distill by 5. There are several options for you out there. They can do the same thing. I feel like we're the best selfishly, but I'm not here to sell. I do have some screenshots of our product, but it's just meant to help with clarity. I'm here to have a conversation around what software can do for a distillery in 2026. Today, Excel and paper are still our biggest competitor, but that's really quickly shifting. In 2010, software users were early innovators. They were comfortable with software, or they were the largest producers with the cash to build their own stuff, typically off the back of huge financial ERPs. Those early innovators had the head start, and many of the big boys are actually now transitioning off of those huge clunky solutions to SaaS solutions, so cloud-based, lighter weight things. They're seeing just how much money they continue to put into that custom big behemoth solution. And the software landscape has changed. I mean, you can create a tool to solve a problem in weeks or months. I just met with one of the biggest producers last week, and they're coming to a brutal realization that they dump $2 million a year just to keep the lights on for a custom solution. But the software adoption cycle is slow, which keeps me up at night. On average, I talk to 200 distilleries in a month. And it's honestly, it's more than that. When we get them at this stage that I've highlighted, this kind of maturity stage, which is where more often than not people are looking at software, it can be rough. Often the result is stagnant growth because you're trying to implement software while you're already, things are moving, they're humming along. Trying to adopt software while you're growing and busy can be painful. A question I often ask distillers is, what's your software budget? It's a really tough conversation to have right now with some DSPs. What I'm trying to do is move that box further in the process and change people's thinking to, okay, well, software can be part of the solution. It's not like a necessary evil. It's an opportunity. And even if you decide not to go with Distill by 5, a software vendor should be able to help you navigate implementations and software projects. This chart doesn't have to mean the entire life cycle of your business. It's not like kickstart your DSP, grow, mature, and now you're rocking. It can be at the start of a year. It can be at the start of a new product launch, or maybe at the start of a big initiative you're undertaking. And so just a question I'll kind of leave hanging with you is, what's one critical problem or initiative you want to solve this year? And once you have that identified, let's get to work fixing it. Like I said, the chart isn't just new distilleries. What about those that have been up and running for some time? Well, the challenge here is getting into the state of constant problem identification, then strategizing, investing, problem solving. So today we're going to cover 3 key areas where I'm seeing massive success with the adoption of software at distilleries. 1 is integrations, 2 is data, and 3 is partnerships. And just a quote I like to use, some smart guy said it: software isn't about replacing the art of distilling, it's about amplifying it. So, number 1, integrations. The problem I'm talking about today as a use case, because it's always good to use real world examples, is palletized storage and the risks that come with it. So let's quickly bring it back to that supply chain graphic. For this case, we're focusing on that rack house and the problems that arise from having to manage hundreds or thousands of critical assets. In this case, the problem was that once production had completed and the product was in a barrel, it went into a spreadsheet and it was forgotten. Then you start moving things around, you sell some of it, you ship some out, you lose the spreadsheet, you forget what you named the spreadsheet, you forgot what version of the spreadsheet you're supposed to be opening. The kid who built the spreadsheet went back to school, you name it. There could be any problem with that. And there has to be a better way. Well, in this case, Barrel Scout is a very cool product that does one thing, and it does it well. It uses RFID technology, so basically super barcodes, to create a virtual warehouse. So as you move barrels around your rack house, the system's it automatically knows where they are, and it knows where they're going. And goodbye spreadsheets, which is something we can all say we want. So I'll just kind of walk you through Barrel Scout. It's really simple and it's cool. RFID tags, they get epoxied to the barrel right at the metal band. It enables automatic detection by forklifts and handheld readers. So they slap a RFID scanner on a forklift, which then, as you just go about moving barrels around your warehouse, what it's doing is it's reading those tags on the barrels and it's figuring out height, depth, row number, location. They have tags embedded in the floor. They drill into the concrete and epoxy them onto the floor. The forklift reads the RFID tag in each label as it just moves things around. There's also handheld for smaller operations for like shipping, receiving, quickly locating independent barrels. And then here's the cool part. They have a cloud application, which is a virtual warehouse of where everything is. To me, what makes sense is to get tools talking to each other. So what they don't do, because we're talking about integrations, what they don't do is production, planning, inventory, processing. So what makes sense to me is that Distill by 5 or another piece of production software handles all that. Then when they're ready to move the barreled product to a rack house, the integration allows you to do so. Everything tied to that barrel, spirit type, cogs, lot information, all that stuff moves along with it because it was tracked in production. And look, to be honest, these guys might end up being our barrel inventory tool in the future. I'm talking to 4 different barrel, tank, and warehouse sensor providers right now about integrating our tools. Multiple large partners of ours are piloting sensor projects, like they actively have pilots for sensors. And it could be everything, evaporation, not just location. These guys are location. Could be evaporation, it could be temperature, all those types of things. And although we don't want to start building hardware, like I really don't want to build hardware, a trend like that is something we do want to be involved in, even if we're just opening up Distill by 5 to show their data in our product or vice versa. What you in the room have the opportunity to do is challenge these tools, us and them, to talk to one another. And it's an opportunity because you get to guide that project and that process as the end user. The second kind of key, I guess, use case for data and technology is data itself. Sounds a bit obvious. The problem's pretty simple. It's putting critical data into the hands of end users like yourselves so you can make informed decisions and so you can solve problems. It's, in my humble opinion, an underutilized tool in the industry. You can see a few examples of visual data here. I'm sorry, it's very small resolution. But I'm hoping it puts some color to the types of data I'll talk about on the next slide. As distillers, you have the potential for a lot of data. However, if you're on paper or Excel or other tools, you can't really get access to it. And that data is your asset. And there's been a recent shift in the industry to use that asset to inform the next steps DSPs should be taking. And I mean that. The critical thought here, the change in thought here is shifting towards your data is your asset. The large distiller I talked about earlier, they subscribe to this tool. And we recently built a custom report highlighting any discrepancies in recipes because they work in shifts. They're a big producer. They have kind of the daytime and the nighttime rotating shifts. And they had a sneaky suspicion one shift was being a bit naughty, and they just needed help to pinpoint the discrepancies between the shifts. And they needed to prove it in the data to inform the conversation. So shift workers or shifts now have a leaderboard. It's constantly showing on a screen who had the most discrepancies every month. It's really cool. It's meant to be almost like creating competition. They're using their data to build that culture of compliance. And why not? Like, you're entering it into a software product. And guys, it's your asset, this data. So why not leverage it to guide the improvements you'd like to see? I kind of, it's a text heavy slide, but here's some examples of reports and data sources we're enabling daily for active users. I'll kind of only stick on this for a second, but things like monthly loss and blending efficiency, batch, yields, all kinds of things like that. You're putting this data into a system, you should be able to leverage it. At the moment, the only DSPs I can think of really actively leveraging something like this are the ones with like an Excel guru or like a bored university kid on staff, willing to build massive, complex, impossible to maintain spreadsheets and dashboards, or they have a giant subscription to Power BI, Microsoft's tool. But if custom Excel is the play, then we run into a problem. We aren't focused on the products and revenue. You're too busy managing the tools themselves. Like, this is a spreadsheet I love. It's all it does is it's talking about we love ADI, and we actually use ADI as kind of our key indicator for industry numbers. And what's funny is it's just trying to show like a depth of penetration per state. But it's my favorite spreadsheet because I get to target my team and things like that. But it's already out of date. Like, it's out of date the second I published it to the team. Just a frustrating part of managing these big sheets. And another thing, like, just speaking of that subscription to Power BI, this is an exercise I just went through with an Irish, actually, distiller of ours. Power BI was built for larger industries, and it's positioned that way. So my focus is, are there opportunities to create industry specific reporting without the effort and the giant bill? This poor Irish distiller, by the way, he's locked in a multi-year deal. Oh my gosh, feel bad for him. But he didn't have another potential partner in the space. So just an interesting exercise for a light implementation. It's $250,000. I love this slide. I presented it to our management team just this past year. Here's a myth I want to squash. The idea of this slide, I guess I got to give you the context. The message I was trying to give my team was there's no sacred cows, and so that's what that's what this is doing. The idea that only the largest and most complex, or those with the most capital to throw, are the only ones who can access and leverage data in meaningful ways. I want to kill that sacred cow. Data is not for enterprise producers only. Another opportunity we have is, so I talked about you guys have a lot of data. Well, we have a lot of data. We have 1,000 distillers data going back 15 years. Now, while we can't share that data and things like that, like, there's so many, it's yours. What's interesting is we should be able to kind of pull that data, anonymize it, and present it back to you, a distillery, in kind of a way that gives you insightful, actionable data that you can use to create your strategy or your next steps. I had a business in Pennsylvania reach out to do exactly this. They just wanted us to pull 4 or 5 data points to confirm their suspicions, and then sit in on their multi-year planning meeting just to literally point at the reports that we produced. I was also talking to a large producer. They mentioned that they price tested industry reports, and the price was unbelievable. I told them, like, why didn't you come to us? It's just a thought exercise, and we have to shift the thinking. Just in this case, tell us what you're after and put us to work. We have partners in the space. Like, look, we're presenting with ADI. We can do all kinds of things. The worst that can happen is we come back with a fraction of what you're after, but it took us a few weeks and we didn't charge you $250,000 for it. So what can you do? This brings me to kind of our latest tool, and that's what it's trying to do. It's just trying to get useful data into the hands of distillers. We may have some insights subscribers on this call. I'd suggest you give it a go. My team will kill me, but if you're interested, just say you listen to me at this presentation and we'll give it to you no charge. It's just meant to be that. It's an industry tool specific for you guys. We own the management of it. We maintain it so it refreshes hourly, daily, weekly. We lean on tools to do all kinds of great things. Like, it can email out dashboards to anybody. You can have, permissions set up. We build trends and alarms and alerts when you pass certain thresholds or KPIs. We can even give you kind of open designer access to this tool, which is our long-term play. We just don't trust everyone not to break it right now. But this is kind of the first step, right? It's getting distillers really good data so they can make informed decisions. I have a use case for this one as well. So interestingly enough, the CDA. For this use case, we're looking at the guy in the giant monitor there. He's on the computer in the back office wondering when Cooper is going to rescue him and make it so he doesn't have to use all these spreadsheets. So quick context for this use case. I was talking with a distiller in California who wanted to know more about our data tool. He's really, really clever. And as we dove into what insights could do and how he could leverage it, I made a comment. I said, my next call is going to be with the state guild. And guess what? He was a board member. And the CDA is making some big steps to delivering more value to their membership. If there's any of you familiar with California, you'll know their state reporting requirements take an already daunting task and make it much worse. Okay, so you want to give California distillers a win. We want a project that leverages data and delivers real value. So we decided to work together. So we have the problem identified. Here's, the current, which is a lot of text-heavy requirements for reporting. Every single month, he's clicking that export to Excel button, and he's doing manual formatting, data filtering, manual checks of numbers, comparisons to records. All in all, it's hours of brutal work every month. And here's our version of it with the name redacted in black. What we did is we took exactly this item and we made a report out of it. And what's really cool is we embedded that as just a menu item in our product. So now Nate clicks a button, and that button is constantly running and ready. It's formatted exactly as we need it for submission. It's based on the data he's been entering, like his own data, daily or weekly. The process took state reporting from a massive lift. It automated it to the point he's just number checking. So this is going out to all California Distill by 5 members. I've had calls with 3 other guilds to do the exact same exercise. And listen, if you want us to get to yours next, just let me know. But this is just an example of how you can leverage your data. And this isn't even, insight. It's just doing a task that takes hours every week. What's really cool is, this took weeks. I believe in rapid solutioning. That's kind of fundamentally how I've always operated. So how quickly can you get to this? This is a breakdown of this project. We happened to do it over Christmas, so it was kind of delayed. But in reality, it was how quickly can we get to this? And that's how it should be. It'll be launching. We did a soft launch last week. It's launching to everyone this week. The last thing I wanted to talk about is partnerships. So the problem is really simple. Why do I use 8 separate systems to run my distillery? um, I'm almost done talking, I promise. You guys have made it 30 minutes. So point number 3 is partnerships. Um, Again, I come from international shipping where software is represented and used along the entire supply chain. This is a massive benefit of using software at your business. So not competing tools, but complementary software that solve unique problems. So we don't really got to quiet my notifications here. We don't handle beer and we never will. I sometime maybe at ADI, take me out for a beer and I'll tell you about beer by 5. um, but we can integrate with Beer 30 and we can allow for data to be sent and received or shared between the two systems. I have a brew distillery partner who sometimes screws up a batch of beer and he needs to send it to his distillery so he doesn't waste it. That's an example. Same goes for front of house systems, so point of sale systems. We have a partnership right now with GoTab, back of house accounting systems, so live integrations with SAP, QBO, Xero. We're building one with NetSuite right now. What about things like tour ticketing and scheduling products, barrel brokers, sensor providers, like I talked about earlier? You name it. I have meetings every single week, and I'm not exaggerating, with people who could offer something to you guys. And look, most of them fall flat. But some I position to bring on as partners because I know they solve a problem a lot of you deal with on a regular basis. I could talk all day about integrations. I really like sitting in this space because what it does is it gives you guys tools. A software provider like us can often also negotiate on your behalf, getting you access to these tools at really reduced rates. I had somebody on Distill by 5 tell me recently they signed up for Beer 30. And I was so mad at them because they didn't go through me. And I called Beer 30 and they ended up getting a 40% discount. And so, maybe my role is just getting you better rates other places. And again, how quickly can we move through this process? We just did work with a customer of ours in Virginia. It ended up not leading anywhere. I got to caveat this. Anyway, they use a young sensor startup, and that sensor startup is looking to break into distilling. Well, instead of a big, bulky partnership, why didn't we just the three of us get in a room? And all we did is we talked about, okay, what do we need to happen? And we challenge ourselves to present something back to them inside of 3 or 4 weeks. Like these companies, and by these companies, I mean that young sensor company, they want your business. They're trying to break into the industry. So challenge them to become a solution quickly and challenge them to solve your biggest problems. Leveraging our API layer, which is just the tool we use to integrate with other products, we're able to actually sit down and talking about bringing in evaporation data and temperature data and all the things that sensor company was tracking into Distill by 5. So we're able to have that conversation. And then we built a model for how we do it that isn't, brutally expensive for you. Which brings me to the thing that keeps me up at night. Don't you dare tell my team I showed you a roadmap on a slide deck, although it's being recorded. But here's our roadmap. For everything on this list, we currently do it. But as we move into the next 3 to 5 years, we want to introduce more and more compelling tooling that delivers real mission critical value to you. And there's one issue, which is the dev quote on the side. That's great, Coop. But one problem, this 6-month roadmap will take 3 years to build. I hear that all the time. Okay, great. Then let's refocus. If someone out there is doing a better job of a specific thing, why develop it from scratch? With the challenges you're facing, you guys on this webinar, rapid solutioning that delivers value quickly is what you need. Or just like we did with the CDA, why not make another tool an embedded module or native module to Distill by 5? So this is what Trey at Barrel Scout and I are talking about right now. So now that we have Distill by 5 users subscribing to Trey's virtual warehouse tool, does that become an extension of Distill by 5? So right now you have to open up two products, meaning you have to navigate to two different websites, have two different tabs, use two different logins. So how do we tackle the flow of data so the two systems interact seamlessly? Am I going to build a virtual warehouse system with sensors and hardware? Absolutely not. Am I going to use modern technology like API endpoints to connect the two and in the future make them one system? Maybe. So this is taking Trey's tool and embedding it into Distill by 5 as a module. I'm working really, really hard to position our product Distill by 5 as the central hub of all this activity. So basically just pulling these disparate, separate systems into one central location and putting it all in front of your face in one place. And then use the integrations and partnerships to manage the flow of data. I presented this kind of idea to our team maybe a year and a half ago, and we've been moving in that direction ever since. We're investing in partnership programs, building our API, which is, remember, that connector, so it can handle any integration. We spent over $150,000 subscribing to Sisense, which is that reporting visualization tool, which allows us to do a lot. We developed integrations with SAP and NetSuite that allows the flow of data between those massive tools. We're heading here, and we intend to keep heading there. And the most important partnership of all is ours. There's current Distill by 5 users who see our team as a software vendor. And the lesson today is a software vendor really should be an arm of your business. You should see them as an arm of your business, like your development team or your R&D department. Give us problems to solve. That's what a software vendor should do for you. Challenge us to present you with something that'll automate a clunky or terrible process, or it removes a massive risk, or it increases your throughput by X%. Those are the things we want to be working on. There's some steps you can take right now. I mean, I've showed you a bunch of stuff, but really number one, I think, and it's not listed here, is the question that I asked Maersk. What is a critical business problem or opportunity that you want to solve this year? And another exercise is break down your distilling operations into modular process. I don't know why I use such a clunky term, but those boxes in colors. Maybe it's fermentation, quality analytics, bottling, packaging, supply chain. It could be all of these things. And something I'll leave you with is a face and pace exercise. These are great. It's function accountability and process accountability. It basically does the box exercise for you. And treat each as a software opportunity. And then invest strategically. So build or partner with specialized people, and start building out initiatives in your multi-year plan and in your budget. And most importantly, see if you can build a culture of kind of iterative improvement. See if I can change your thinking of software as an expense to software as a solution or a tool or a way to remove barriers. I'll leave you this with one quote. And I hope I managed to shine a bit of light on how we can leverage software in the industry and some cool examples of people doing it. I really appreciate you letting me talk today and the opportunity. And I'll definitely see you all in Miami later. And thank you for listening to me ramble for the past 40 minutes. Miraculously, I finished in 40 minutes. My team will tell you that's never happened before. So That's it. It's the end of the presentation.
Cooper, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. It's a good deep dive into all this technology. I've only been with ADI since 2024, so within spirits, I'm still in that like learning phase of understanding what all goes into it. So I really appreciate it, and I hope those attending got something out of it. So, guys, if you have questions for Cooper, go ahead and like open up that Q&A tab down there at the bottom and ask your questions. I'm happy to moderate these a little bit and help facilitate them. So if you guys have any questions, feel free. Right now is the time to ask them. I'll give you a little bit of time to enter one. If not, we'll end the webinar. Is there anything else you need to add, Cooper, while we wait for people to ask any
No,
questions? I don't see any coming in
no,
yet.
no. I think if you ever, what I can do is I'll have Maria on our team uh, get with you, Brennan, about if you do have follow up and you want to schedule some time, I'm more than happy to sit with you and chat through some things. I can bring a bunch more insight into the projects that we've done and things like that. So I'm always available if anyone wants to book any time whatsoever. And yeah, we'll work on how to get that to people.
Joe asked, how and where can we get access to the Insights database reporting tool?
Brilliant. Love the question. So there's a couple ways. One is on our website. If you go to fx5.com, there's plenty of opportunities for you to, in the solutions drop down on the top, there's a drop down and you click on business intelligence, and that takes you to the opportunity to kind of get on a call with somebody. It's extremely quick. The tool is able to be deployed like same day. So you sit down, you talk with us, and you want to talk, through things and get a demo of the product, and you decide to move forward with it. That same day, in 10 minutes, you can have access to it, and it pulls from your actual data. So I would suggest going to the site, and then when you do, mention that you were on the ADI webinar, and I'll talk to the team and give you a freebie.
Hey, Zeus just said he has to leave. Thank you very much. Tony Lee, we are self-funded, very small startup distillery in California.
Mm.
Nothing your quote, when to implement slides, would 5x5 be a very inexpensive solution to start and scale with, or would you recommend another solution to start our journey?
It's a really good question. Our pricing starts at $365 a month. But with that, you get all kinds of stuff. It's similar to ADI. Like, we are your partner. We give you all kinds of industry insight, all kinds of hands-on support services. You get access to all kinds of hours of consulting and hand-holding time. Like, we make sure that we are a partner of yours. Now, if you're really small, we also have programs to drop that monthly recurring as well. We just having gone through the last year and a half together, it's tough at times, and especially for a distillery just starting out. And so I'd be happy to try and work with you on a monthly price as well, because I know that it's not in our best interest to not have you be successful. So I would suggest it from the get-go. Where I don't suggest it is, we get people who start off and they have to figure out permitting. That's when I don't suggest it. And look, if you decide not to move forward with Distill by Five, you can leverage one of our partners who's more of our kind of like more consultative side of the business. And maybe what you do is you talk to them for a few hours every month, and they help you guide along until you're ready to adopt software. So lots of opportunities and lots of wiggle room.
So implement early, but not too early.
There you go. Yeah, I've lived the too early thing, where a guy's getting a bill and the building hasn't isn't there yet. It's like, well, yeah, of course.
Well, Donald Snyder said, so I had that same cough you were talking about. That's why I was glad I was back in
Oh
the
yeah, yeah.
room because you did way better than I do. Donald said, can you go into more details about the 360 a month option? How
Yeah,
does
so
one get that pricing?
yeah, absolutely. So our base rate is 365 a month. That's our base rate. Um, our pricing is meant to be really simple, but often comes across as complex. It effectively is your previous 12 months bottled proof gallons is the measurement we use to determine a tier that you fit into pricing wise. If you've had a great previous 12 months, you could go to a tier two, which starts in the 400s. So that 365 is actually, it's just anybody who falls into a T1, which is below, I believe, 1900 proof gallons produced a year. Now that being said, I do want everyone to I do want to acknowledge and make sure everyone knows that um, over the past like 18 months, we've introduced things like we call it our hardship programs and tier discounting because it's been tough, and we understand that margins are shifting and people are there's some people who are struggling to keep the lights on and things, and so we're working with distilleries all the time to reduce the subscription amount to something that makes sense for your business. And so I'm not saying kind of, we're just going to constantly be discounting and things. That's not what I'm saying, but we have to have an open conversation about what works for you. But yeah, to answer your question, Donald, that 365 is our base. That's our starting rate. So if you're just starting out and you're in that big kind of starter growth phase, then that's typically the rate that you fall into.
Nice.
And we don't forecast. That's another funny lesson to learn. I love the ambition of everybody. But you're forecasting 100,000 proof gallons. I'm not basing your pricing off of that. That's because look, if you miss that by X%, you still have a great year, but you miss your forecast and I'm charging you for more. It doesn't make any sense to us. That's why we go retrospective billing. So
That's awesome. All right, guys. Any more questions for anyone out there? If not, we'll sign off, let everybody get to lunch or on with their day, depending on where you're at uh in the time zones.
cool.
Well, Cooper, thank you so much again. Thank you to 5x5 for being a longtime sponsor of ADI. We really appreciate you guys. Look
Got it.
forward to seeing you and everyone else down in Miami in August 18th and 19th. For you who are on, if you're an ADI member, thank you so much for being a member. If you're not an ADI member, please go to distilling.com. Check out our membership page. We did just launch our new free membership for DSPs and non-distilling producers. So that gives you that low entry, that free entry to get into the community, start getting news, start getting updates. You get the discount to the conference and the spirits competition. So please go check that out. Again, if you're a member, thank you. If not, we hope that you will become a member because membership helps us do our monthly webinars like this with great people from the community like Cooper who can help solve problems within the distilling world. So, Coop, thanks again so much. Uh, Hopefully, I'll see you before Miami, but if not, I'll see you down there and we'll have a mojito together.
You got it. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for listening to me.
Bye, y'all. Have a great week.
Have a great week.
Bye.